How do you play these Japanese games? Hey everybody, how's it going? Chris here with my Famicom Cave series. And today's short little video, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents about how to play Japanese games on your machines. And why I'm doing this one. I'm getting much more into the video game collecting side. Of course, I've always been a gamer. I've always had all these consoles, all my life through childhood, things like that. Lost a lot of things in childhood, slowly getting them back. But one of the things is, I got a Famicom. Of course, I'm playing a lot of Famicom games, a lot of Japanese games. They seem to be a lot more cheaper, even purchasing bulk Famicom or Japanese games seem to be a lot cheaper. So be it, than buying the American versions or the North American versions. So with that comes some issues about playing the Japanese games. And I've seen a lot of videos that are just not, I don't know, how I would like to play my Japanese games. And I'll give you some examples of sorts, and where my reasoning is kind of coming from. Let's start with here. Let's say this kind of book that I just showed on my previous video, a comic book, and I'm mainly a comic book collector, is that if you add or remove anything from a comic book, it can degrade the value. And now there's only so many of this particular book. It's never going to be made again. It can be reprinted, which I think this one actually has been. It can be reprinted, but it's not the same book. It's worth only $1, $2, and nowhere near the value of this one. A reprint is never worth the value, so they're making, you can make new systems like the Retron 5, which looks really cool, plays a lot of Famicom games, North American games. That's one way to play your Japanese games. That's really cool. But again, the value of that machine is nowhere near the value, or what I think the value should be for the original, or the appreciation that somebody would have for the originals, a collector, that they'd have for those original pieces of equipment that are never going to be made again. So like, say if the cover was really bad, and say, hey, I want this book to be really beautiful, but I don't like the cover, and I replace it, or there's an ad in there cut out, that takes away the value. So from a comic book collector's standpoint, adding or removing anything from a comic book degrades the value. So for me as a collector, when it comes to these, I've seen a lot of videos where people are mutilating their game systems, mutilating their game cartridges to play these Japanese games. So that's what I don't like, and that's what I want to put in my 2 cents about, because these games are never going to be coming out again. Emulations, you can play these games for hundreds of years to come that way, but there is no value on them, really, I don't think, an appreciation like there is for the actual cartridge, the first, made cartridges. So I don't like seeing them destroyed. I don't like seeing people taking Dremels to them, and drills, and saw blades, and the machines. So if you've seen some of these videos out there where they're taking Dremels to the back of the cartridges, or say the N64 or the Super Nintendo, where they there's like these clips that make them not be able to go in. If they're removing that plastic pieces, breaking, mutilating their machines, that's what I don't want. So that's, if you want the same thing, this is kind of the video for you. And my experience with this, okay? So let's just start with the Nintendo Famicom. I have a Famicom, as you see here. I love it. It's great. It's an interesting issue. I have to go through 2 different VCRs to change it from RF to audio video and whatever. It's still a lot of fun. The only problem is, short cord. So I can play all my Famicom games on there. That's great. That's awesome. But I also love playing on my original Nintendo that I got as a child. So the only way you can play that is really with a converter. You can get one of these, made ones. Look on YouTube or look on the internet. You'll be able to find some kind of a 60 to 72 pin converter. I'll just show you this guy. This too. This is the only game I've got recently, and I did a bunch of cleaning of games. I borrowed a bunch of games, and instead of buying them, I said, "Hey, can I borrow them? But I'll clean them all up for you. I'll clean up the games, the cartridges, the pins, and things like that." And I think in a little bit in appreciation of that, a friend of mine that doesn't have a Famicom or a way to play the game gave me this, a Super Mario Brothers 3 Famicom game. But if you have a good eye, you would have noticed right away. It's probably not an original. It looks like a pirate cart. The cartridge is all wrong, and the label, it's just showing a picture of the Mario label. There's no a Famicom code or word label. Tops are different. So here's an original one. You'll see that the shape is a little bit different. They got a label on the back. This one actually doesn't have a proper label on the back. So anyways, that's my only new pickup for a while, so I figured I'd show it here. But yeah, so this one, get one of these pin converters, and say if this ribbon would be the bottom, you'd have to put your game in upside down to that, so facing the ribbon side, connected in there, and then again label or the back of the cartridge facing up, putting it in your Nintendo. There we go. There we go. We got some play. Okay, so yeah, everything's it's a little messed up, but that's okay. Yeah, in this one I've seen some of the sprites a little bit messed up in this pirate copy occasionally, but it still plays really good, and you can get it to go normal. But yeah, it's a pirate copy of Super Mario Brothers 3, and everything's normal. Of course, there's some English, but throughout the game there is some Oriental text in there. So there, by getting one of those converters, or you might have seen too, there is a way, if you can get a really cheap copy of Gyromite, you can, and some of the older ones, you can find there's actually a piece inside that converts them. And again, with that, it's a really neat idea. People will make their own homemade converters like this. But again, I'm not for mutilating the cartridges, because again, even though those games might be really cheap, you might find a lot out there, still it's mutilating them. I don't like it. They get less and less and less in the wild, and eventually the values are going to be going up by people destroying them. So you could still take out that converter if you can take it apart, if you can use it. If you're finding it for cheap, take it out, use it, but don't put your Dremel to it. Take out your cartridges, see if you can find another cart that you can just slap them in without mutilating it. If you're really careful too, you could probably just, slap the converter on there. You take out your board from here and slap it onto the converter. Just again, good ways, two good ways. Buy yourself a converter. If you can find a really cheap one in the Gyromite, or there's a few other games besides Gyromite, but Gyromite's the most popular one to find a converter in. That's a great way to play your Famicom games on your North American system. But again, the collector in me urges you not to mutilate your cartridges or your systems. The next one here, I got a few Super games here. Super Famicom. So I got some Donkey Kongs, and a little bit different, and it doesn't have the nubs. Pretty much the size is exactly the same. It could fit in the slot, but again, in the machine, there's those little plastic nubs that in the real games, let's see, yeah, right here, the little slot holes there. So what some people I've seen do is, to the back of the Super Famicom games, they'd line up those nubs there and actually take a Dremel and Dremel out the cartridge so they could just slide in. I really don't like mutilating the system. So here is Putty game, one of my old games. that was given to me quite a while ago too. I just took it out. I took out the cartridge. It's one of the Donkey Kong games. It might be 2 or something. But yeah, I put it inside the putty one. As I recall, I think it's still in there. I haven't switched it over. But I just took out the whole thing and then slapped, out of the Super Famicom, and then I put it inside this kind of cartridge without mutilating anything. I got it in there. And let's see. Let's switch it. There we go. Okay, so you saw that was a Super Putty cartridge that I put in there. But right there, you got Donkey Kong 2. I don't know if you can see it too well, but there you go. So you can see it a little bit, right? Japanese Donkey Kong 2. You can tell it's the Japanese version with the text down there. Let's see. There you go. So that's a way to play your Super games. Just switch the cartridges, or simple enough, just take the board out. Put it in your machine. You don't even really need the cartridge. You just gotta be, careful with the flat door banging on it or something like that. But still, there's a better way of doing it than mutilating your systems. Okay, so there's that. And again, right there, you saw it. Donkey Kong Japanese version 2. I just slapped the motherboard inside a North American cartridge. It worked. It's great. I don't know if the motherboards, if the plastic in them all line up, but for me, I think, finding some really cheap games, if you find them, for a couple bucks here and there, buy some cheap games, and if you want to switch the cartridges, because I think some of them, the plastic, some motherboards had a different layout, so sometimes the plastic in them were different, but for the most part, I find they're all kind of the same. So there's that, and then the Japanese N64 games. Same kind of pins. So here, this isn't a one I got a while ago, but so you see the nubs here are different, right? So when I try to put it in the 64, the only thing preventing that it's going into the cartridge slot is that those plastic slots in the machine, they're not lining up with the Japanese version that's not going in. So I have, where is it here? So you see on the front, right, Majora's Mask, the current game that I'm playing, and I've just switched it out. I had a Quake, North American release of Quake, took off the back, put it on there, works. It pops in. Don't have to mutilate your games. Don't have to mutilate your cartridges. See. And there we go. Majora's Mask. So that's my 2 cents on the subject, you guys. I just really wanted to share that, again, just as a collector. Maybe this is the right way for you, maybe it's not. But again, just wanted to put in my 2 cents there and help try to show the gaming community that you do not have to mutilate your systems, do not have to mutilate your cartridges, to play these beautiful and awesome games of old. And I hope a lot of you guys share the same thoughts. Regardless, please leave your comments, your questions, or post your own videos in regards to this. I'd love to watch them, and we'll check you all later. See ya.